Tony Dari, who has the designation as Special Advisor on Public Communication and National Orientation, is now Special Advisor, Media and Public Communications. Daniel Bwala, who was announced last week as Special Advisor, Media and Public Communication, is now Special Advisor, Policy Communication. In a statement by Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, there is no single individual as spokesperson for the presidency. All the three special advisors, according to him, will collectively serve as spokespersons for this government. And this approach, according to the press release, aims to ensure effective and...
Thank you for having me this afternoon. We all know that the president is very much at liberty to appoint anyone he so desires to bring up to his team. And let us also be mindful of one thing. The average Nigerian believes that the president's comms team, the communications team, is actually not communicating enough with Nigerians. That they're actually not hitting it the way they should hit it. So I believe that's what informed the appointment of Daniel Bwala to join the team. It's a welcome development. One thing I've always been telling people is, it is the prerogative of the president to bring on board anybody he so desires. For anybody to begin to question the rationale or the decision of the president to appoint people he believes would serve him, I think we are doing a disservice to the sensibility of Mr. President himself. We should respect his office, and he knows what he wants. Before now, we had Ngalile Ajuri that was there. Unfortunately, he had to exit, and there was a vacuum. And since that vacuum, I'm aware that Chief Bayo Onanuga is in charge of strategy, and by the time Chief Sunday Dari was also appointed as a special advisor to the president, at that time, he was announced to be seconded to the Ministry of Information and National Orientation, and I believe that's where it was functioning from. And when the announcement of Daniel Bwala was made, it was categorically stated state out. So where did things go wrong? And some things are internal processes that should be done internally without actually trying to foul the hair. This, as at yesterday, Daniel Bwala introduced himself, he came on board officially. But from the moment his appointment was announced, there has been a lot of misgivings within APC and even in the opposition as to whether...
And indeed, Mr. Olajosu, for obvious reason, considering that, his past affiliation with Atiku Abubakar and the PDP, and and the things he has said in the days leading up to the election, you don't expect people. I understand your position, but on the contrary, some would say it's a public office. They are paid with taxpayers' money, and they do have a right to comment or react to these appointments. Do you agree?
I'm not taking away the right of anybody to comment or to criticize. But let me give you a very simple analogy as to my conviction as to whatever the president does concerning this issue. As a follower of the English Premier League, we all know that Frank Lampard is a Chelsea legend. By all standards, by all quality, is a Chelsea legend. But towards the twilight of his career, he left Chelsea and he went to join Manchester City. The first game of that season, when he went to Manchester City, he played against Chelsea. He even scored against Chelsea. And you know what? He came back later to be Chelsea's manager. Why didn't Chelsea say because he had worked against them, he had played against them before, they are not going to have him? It's all about who will serve a particular purpose at what particular point in time. And this is where when it comes to politics, I see things differently. I look at things from the standpoint of what is going to be of benefit on the long run, the bigger picture. When somebody has always been an APC member, he left the party to join the opposition to work for the other presidential candidate. You don't expect that person to market your candidate for whatever reason. And let's be mindful of one thing. This same person has met with the president a couple of times. So it tells a story about the relationship between the president and Daniel Bwala, which I don't have information about, but it tells a story. What I'm trying to say is, when people are trying to focus mainly on his activities as an opposition spokesperson during the election, then I think we don't understand the fact that politics is not about emotion. Politics is all about permanent
indeed,
and not emotion.
I get your point very clearly, Mr. Adedosu, and I think that just a minute, Mr. Adedosu. I get your point, and I think that Mr. Bwala himself established the point you're making right now in an interview yesterday when he quoted Mr. President as saying, "A king doesn't fight everyone around him, else he becomes a lonely king," a lesson, according to him, he learned from his mother. And I also love your football analogy. But how do you respond to those who aren't pleased that this is someone who was brought from the outside, considering what happened pre-election? Can this potentially affect his performance?
That's where I was going before you came in. And I was saying something. Before Daniel Bwala left the APC, he was in the forefront of pushing for Mr. President even before the primaries. At a point in time, personally, on Twitter, now X, I cautioned him the way he was going after the other candidates who are also in the race with Mr. President as at that time. I went after him. I had to caution him of his choice of words with some candidates as at that time. He went after Lawan Ahmed, who was brought up by some elements within APC. He went after some other elements within APC. Are APC members forgetting he did all this for them? Let's also remember, Fani Kayode was in PDP for a very long time. He was doing so well for PDP, but APC brought him into APC, and like they say, he was doing the Lord's work for APC. Everybody loved it that, thank goodness, APC did not have him as an opposition element because it would have done a lot of damage to APC. That is what we are talking about. Interest, permanent interest. Politics is not a place where you make enemies permanently. It's all about shifting position based on your situation. This is not about business. This is not about business. Politics cannot be equated, cannot be placed on the same pedestal as the corporate world, where you want to run your competitor down at all costs. Politics doesn't work that way. And that is why I'm saying everybody who is criticizing the appointment, they are within their rights to feel slighted.
All right.
But in the cost of feeling slighted, they should also cut Mr. President some slack.
All right.
We know that right now, the comms team of Mr. President can do better than all the internal wranglings and politicking that is going on amongst them. The Prime Minister of India just came, and the general feeling amongst Nigerians is that the comms team of Mr. President dropped the ball. And if they've been saying they dropped the ball, when are they going to pick up the ball? They need to come together and stop these bickerings and stop this internal wranglings.
Mr. Adedosu, we are due for a break now. When we return, we'll talk more about the business and of media and public communication for Mr. President. Stay with us, everyone.
Ahmed Tinubu, do solemnly swear.
In the month of November, on the 2nd of November is the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists. On the 14th of November is the World Diabetes Day. On the 17th of November is the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. On the 18th day of November is the World Day for the Prevention of the Healing from Child Sexual Exploitation, Abuse and Violence. On the 19th of November, it is the International Men's Day, and it is also a day to mark World Toilet Day. On the 21st of November is the World Television Day. And finally, on the 25th of November is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Stay tuned to TVC News for this reports and analysis.
TVC News, first with breaking news.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do solemnly swear.
Co-founder, Africa Data Warehouse, Bayo Adedosu, is live with me from Ontario. Thank you for staying the course. We're discussing Mr. President's media team and the latest development. You know, there are questions around what the specific responsibilities of each member of this team is. The perception out there is that the roles do intersect and that they will have to speak with one voice. Do you foresee a challenge in this regard?
Honestly speaking, I am as confused and concerned like the average Nigerian, okay? And the reason being that when you now declare that everybody is a spokesperson, it simply creates a room for confusion because communication should be centralized. Well, let me use the corporate word. In the corporate world, even when you are working in the Corporate Affairs Commission or department or the communications team, it is not everybody that can speak for that particular organization. There is a particular person saddled with the responsibility of speaking for that organization because there is a need to have a standard. And when you now have multiplicity of voices speaking for the president, there might be a case of divergence from the message. The message might be the same, but the delivery might not be the same. And that is where the risk is. Because every individual, all the three personalities involved are wonderful people. They are all qualified in their right. They've earned their laurels. They've earned their flowers. Nobody can take it away from them. But when you do not centralize communication, you are giving room for distortion. You are creating room for confusion. For me, the best way to have it is you need to have a singular person acting as the spokesperson for Mr. President. The person who is releasing press release can be doing his press release, but for me, ordinarily speaking, I would want a situation whereby Mr. Bayo Ononuga, who's like an uncle to all of us, is actually at the head of the pyramid, is the one that vets communication that goes out. And this is where structure is very important, where processes are important. What I see right now is lack of a structure, lack of processes. And they need to bring in people who can actually help to build that structure and properly spell out roles and responsibility. To them, they think they have the roles and responsibility, but let's not take one thing away. There seems to be personality clash. And the personality clash is when you now say everybody is speaking for the president. Everybody cannot speak for the president. In the last administration, we had two individuals, Femi Adesina and Garba Shehu. Recall that at some point, they brought in some clarity as to what they were doing, that Femi Adesina was going to speak to the policy of government, while Garba Shehu would speak to the personality of Mr. President at the time. With time, we're probably going to see how this new collective spokesperson approach impacts on the effectiveness of this administration's communication strategy. My question is, if any, there's a question that I want us to ask the people within the comms team. When the appointment of Mr. Chief Sunday Dare was released as a special advisor to the president in the office of the Minister for Information and National Orientation, at that point in time, what was he expected to be doing at the Ministry of Information? And when the appointment of Daniel Bwala was announced and he stated State House, what are the areas of convergence and divergence between their roles and responsibilities? Because I believe unnecessary bottlenecks are being created for no reason. Their jobs are already cut out for them. There's so much for them to do that is not being focused on. But with all sense of sincerity and respect to the personalities involved, the memo that came out yesterday, the press release that came out yesterday, should have been an internal memo, internal reorganization that the ordinary Nigerians should not be exposed to. Because honestly, Nigerians see it differently. Nigerians see it as a form of power play. Nigerians see it as a form of struggle within the comms team. What we need, what Nigerians need right now, there is a vacuum of communication with regards to the tax reforms bill. Nigerians are not being informed. There is a section of Nigeria, the northern part of Nigeria is feeling shortchanged. Some people are being deliberate and mischievous about the tax reform bill, and nobody is taking that up. Why is it that is the composition of the comms team, of the communications team of the president, that is the focus? The president is away in Brazil. Nigerians are not being fed with information. Look at the real-time communication we got when the Prime Minister of India was around, Modi was around. Nigerians had to be going to the social media handles of India to be getting information. We can do better than what we are doing. Look, at the end of the day, this is why people believe there are too many hands in the jar. And if there are too many hands in the jar, then there's going to be confusion, there's going to be overlap. Right now, there is an overlap. I think the president himself needs to come in, call our three brothers and our uncle and brothers into a room and speak with them. There is work that needs to be done, and that is to market the president. That is to publicize the activities of the president. Social media presence is not there. They are not even occupying the space of traditional media, which is the radio. The average Nigerian does more with radio communication than social media. The people on social media are not as important as those rural people. They are important, but the rural people are being fed wrong information through the traditional media outlet. And this is the area that we need to focus on. Enough of this internal wranglings.
Well, it sounds like you're scoring the team members very low. To be fair, the two of them just came on board a few weeks ago. Perhaps with time we're going to be able to see how the duplication of communication roles.
This is not a case of scoring them low. Sorry, let me just chip in. I'm not scoring them low. I'm only encouraging them to pick up the gauntlet. I'm only saying there is work for us. There is work for them to do, and they should leave the personality issues aside. Everybody is great. Everybody is wonderful. Everybody comes with something different. Everybody has a different flavor. The most important thing is, with the different flavors that they come with, how can they make it into a beautiful cake that everybody would love to have?
Exactly the point I'm making, that you have identified a gap that must be filled, especially now that we're hearing that all the three special advisors will collectively serve as spokespersons for this government. You have also identified the drawbacks of having multiple voices representing this government at the same time, and how this approach might affect consistent communication of government policies and decisions. But are there potential benefits considering the personalities involved in this team?
Thank you very much. You said consider the personalities involved, because it seems that you have also identified that the personalities also play a major factor in the effectiveness of the communication that is pushed out. The first thing is, let everybody drop that personality toga. We don't need personalities right now. We need work. So they can actually come together in project management, in business analysis. There is what is called the SWOT analysis. Let them do a SWOT analysis. Let them understand the strengths and weaknesses of each person and how they can complement each other, how they can build a team. They have a team of SSAs. They have a team of SAs within the media space. How are they working together? How are they branding the government? The president is not being branded. The government of the president is not being branded. These are things that they need to focus on, not on individuals. As a matter of fact, we should not even be hearing as much of the individuals as we should be hearing of the president and the government of the president. That is the area that they need to focus on. There is a need for serious branding. There is a need for change of strategy and approach. I may not be a core communications person, but common sense, and by virtue of my own calling, I know there is a need for change of strategy and approach for them to be able to do things the right way. They are doing things, but things can still be done better. That's my position.
Good place to leave it. Co-founder, Africa Data Warehouse, Bayo Adedosu. Thank you so much for your contribution on the program this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
There's no doubt that it's essential that we understand the reasoning behind the restructuring and how it will impact government's communication strategy. Perhaps the idea is to promote a more collaborative effort, something similar to collective bargaining where multiple parties work together to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. But we have to wait to see how all of that will play out in the coming days. That's our program today, everyone. Thank you for being a part of it. You can watch it again at midnight and at 6 a.m.